You can kind of see how it impacts of how some of these other ones in the towns then kind of get long and kind of have to grab population to finally get to the right size. Oh, sorry. And then likewise, when we looked at Egg Harbor, we could combine it with one district. For example, we tried it this way just to keep it all as one unit, but then we end up with there's a lot of town islands in the town of Egg Harbor with the village. So it makes it look like it's a really gerrymandered district. But we did look at it, but ultimately we did not like, or the committee did not like this design in doing that. The one thing that, now going back to the village, I'm just gonna show you, just because I don't want to get everyone confused, I'm going to go back to our recommended plan. It's going to take 1 second, but I can go back into our recommended plan. Because this is the one area as far as the northern door that came up in terms of the districts. So the question now is under the districts now, really looking at 19 and 20 in terms of how that's done. So right now you'll see the maps showing them as kind of dividing the village of Sister Bay in half. Again, the reason why it's kind of divided funky in half is, again, this one polygon, this 137 goes all the way up to over to here. So this one is a massive polygon. So again, we're trying to make them compact in terms of the representation. So this is how those districts were drawn, okay? So we look at 19 and 20. You can see that they're both within the population. They're almost both spot on. Again, and you can see the compactness is there, our planned deviation's fine. Another option would be oops. So this would be a different option for 19 and 20. So in this case, it's kind of a horse apiece. So in this case, you end up with a more compact, I guess district here 20 with all of the Sister Bay part of Ephraim, but you still have to grab part of the town to get the population. But now with this district 19, you have to go a little bit further down into the town and in the Bailey. So it's kind of a horse apiece in how they're divided. You can look at the maps, you can see, you can kind of swap back and forth. If you go down, the representation is still almost spot on between it. You just swapped a population and you're still compact. So again, that's just another option of way of looking at it. That's the ability of the software going back way. We're just trying to be transparent on the options. Again, the committee went through them and they recommended what's the tentative plan. So again, those were the three areas that I think the committee had discussion on. I mean, we discussed all the areas. We walked through, the committee did a really good job. They walked through every single district. They looked at every boundary. And again, when we had discussions, again, the primary discussions were on the three areas identified, that southern district, the city, and then also this northern area in terms of options. But again, they ultimately then recommended the tentative plan that's before you. So with that, I'll open it to questions or comments or however you like to do it.
Vinny?
Thank you to the committee for all the work to do this. And one just quick question I had is I think Ephraim is maybe the smallest village in the county, and I'm just wondering why we're dividing that one instead of taking land that's in the Liberty Grove Township and making up that difference with that one district and not dividing a small village in half. Thank you.
And that was a discussion that was had by the committee. I don't know if the committee wants to jump in, I can summarize, but again, it's a matter of with the population changing and trying to grab the population. And also what Jill was also looking at was the wards and how we try to handle some of the wards and how many, I guess, divisions that we have within each of the towns as well in terms of supervisory representation. So I think it was trying to find a balance of number of representations per town versus a village and just trying to balance that out. So we felt at that time dividing the village of Ephraim, although it's 2, was still reasonable versus having, let's say, Liberty Grove already had 3. If we do that, we could end up with 4 or 5 in Liberty Grove, and we didn't think that was appropriate to have that many districts just within one town.
Okay, thank you. I was just looking at District 19. If it had the 2 sections above it instead of Ephraim, it would just be the same number of districts, or same number of districts for Liberty Grove. I'm fine either way. guess I don't understand how we get to 4 to 5. I don't even see 3 for Liberty Grove.
You have three, you have this blue,
Yeah.
the pink, and if you look here, there's the green, and this option is that way. And again, I probably should go to our tentative plan, just so we're talking about the plan that's before you.
Okay, thank you.
Can we have the clerk give a brief description of how she interacted with it and the reason behind it?
So again, right now, if you look at our tentative plan, we have this blue area, which I guess would be District 21. Then we have this northern, and then we have the southern portion of the town of Liberty Grove. So Liberty Grove would have 3 as it stands right now.
Thank you.
Susan?
So, when the committee met, we spent at least twice as much time as we just did now going through the information. And so my understanding is when the staff worked on this, they spent many, many hours, and it was Ken and Zach doing, did I get the name, Zach? Mm-hmm. Right, doing the technical stuff, and Jill looking as part of the committee to look at the ramifications on elections and ballots and so on. And then it's my understanding that they spent at least 2 hours with Grant, am I right, going over all the legalities and checking the legal boxes for each of these districts. And with us, we really did talk about each district. They showed us starting from the top and working down. They showed us starting from the bottom and working up. And it's amazing how just a little shift has a ripple effect. You know, adding on another census block with another configuration and taking away the census from the other. So I've spent a whole lot of time thinking about this in the last few weeks, and especially this weekend. And I think it's important to think about what is our goal. Every 10 years, we are supposed to draw districts that are the best for our citizens. And past practice and lots of years of drawing districts around this country have shown that the 3 criteria for doing that need to be equal population, compactness, and contiguity. And so that's what the staff did for us. They came up with what they felt was the recommended, in other words, the best in those 3 qualities. Now, did that cause some difficulties? Yes. And I don't know, the names haven't been mentioned, but I'm going to put them out there. It means that there are 2 of these new districts that have 2 of our supervisors in it. One is the district that Nancy and Kara are both in, and one is the district that Ken Fisher and I are both in. And there may be other people who are not thrilled with the voters in their district in terms of knowing them well or not knowing them well or whatever. There's no question that that it will inconvenience incumbents, and yet as a qualification for how to draw a district, that's not what we're supposed to be looking at. It simply isn't. It's supposed to be the best for our people, not necessarily for us. So after thinking about this, I really hope that we do not go down the road of changing this. Part of it is because I think it's the right one. But part of it is that we have timelines that are going to be affected if we do make changes. There are wards being worked on in municipalities that will be changed, and we all know we're up against this deadline to begin with because the census stuff didn't come when it was supposed to. So I'm hoping that we will stick with the original. That's what I'm going to do, because I really think that's in the spirit of what we're supposed to do.
I would like to make a comment since I can't push my button. There are 2 more. I was also affected in District 20. I think Bob Boltman are now in the same district, okay?
Nope.
No,
Nope. You're in 19, Bob's in 17.
okay, but, all right, numbers have changed, but let me back up. If you go back to the Northern Door one that you had up when Vinnie was talking. There, okay. So historically, Liberty Grove is the largest by land mass township in Door County. Okay, so it covers the largest area. It's always been large districts. So this particular map does not cut Sister Bay in half. The map that's proposed or recommended does divide Sister Bay pretty much in half. What I'm suggesting is, as I understand, this particular layout meets all the requirements also. It doesn't change any of the data as far as the 3.91 or whatever. It's all the same, okay? I would propose to make the amendment that we use this instead of the other map. To keep Sister Bay in one contiguous piece. You still have the northern part where Joel is, or the District 21. And if you put up the old map of District 21, 20, and 19, you see it's not that much different.
And I don't have the old map on, I don't think I can show it.
Hold on a second.
It's probably better to go in your packet, look at page 69 of your packet. It shows you the existing 69,
Yes.
and then, actually 68 and 69. I can bring them up on here, but it just doesn't stand out very well.
Okay. So on page 69 of the 2012 District 20, it's pretty much the same. Under the new plan, it would just drop a little bit farther south, and one of the wards that's north of Sister Bay would be included in it. But that would keep Sister Bay in one spot, compact, not split. It would keep the northern part of District 21 in place. And you're just gonna add a little bit farther south on, what was it, 19 now?
Yep.
And so that's what I would propose as a change to what the recommendation was. I'm gonna make it, I'll make a motion to amend it.
I think it's a trip, man.
You might amend.
I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, yes, you can.
Did I?
Yes.
Did it? Okay. But I would need a second on the amendment. Okay,
You have a second?
Yes.
yep, there is a second. Okay. So, now we need to discuss the amendment, correct? Correct?
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody who currently in line in the queue want to talk about the amendment,
What is,
the proposed amendment?
can you word that amendment?
Well, okay. Call this Plan B. That would affect District 21, 20, and 19.
Actually, it's 19 and 20.
Just 19 and 20?
Correct.
Oh, because Joel, right.
Should I clear it?
Yeah, so clear it. Okay, so now anybody who wants to speak on the amendment, now would be the time to put in your. Joel?
So this is all clear as mud to me. So all this is doing under what you're suggesting for your area in Bob's is it's not splitting Sister Bay. It's giving you all of Sister Bay back as one whole thing. That's basically it.
Right, it goes a little bit. What happens is the northern part of Liberty Grove, I'm sorry, just north of Sister Bay, which
Yep.
used to be part in that district, would now go to District
20.
19.
Or, yeah.
19. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as what it was.
Let me just try one thing really quick.
Bring up the maps is what you're looking for, Ken? Either, you can bring them up, they're posted out there.
Oh, That's what I'm looking for, yep.
Either under county board. Main county board. Yes, that is. Although I don't think sorry, we don't have the overview out there. Is that what you're looking for?
Where's the proposed ones? All right, here we go, wait. Oops. Just bear with me, I apologize, that'll help us that we can see.
Bigger TVs. That's nothing major. This is
First
a big
one.
deal. This is keeping.
Hmm?
After this page, you're looking for the overview, or you are looking for the?
Well, it's not split in the village in half. Which affects it on the local level, I guess, right?
Okay, so let me, how do I get rid of this part? I want to get rid of this banner. How do I get rid of it? All right, I can't get it towards the.
Can't get it in.
All right, so here's what we have. So again, if you're looking at the screen, District 21, which is currently sold by Mr. Gunnelson, does not change whatsoever on this. So really what you're doing is you're just gonna do a swap, is what's being proposed. So you have this, I guess we have this existing tentative plan recommendation, and then this tentative plan recommendation. So the main difference you can see is that the part that spills into Town of Bailey's does not change. The main area you're changing is the area that it's grabbing in terms of the village and how that works that way. And also this part here. So you have, that's the difference. Does it make sense? Or I can go to the top and I can zoom in if it's better
Yeah, go
for
to
you
the
that
top
way.
and Zoom in, make more sense, I think. Okay, so on the right is what's
So on the right, what
proposed.
is what's proposed in the tentative plan by the committee. So you have 19 and 20. You can see 19 and 20. The difference in what you're seeing is that in this case, the village of Sister Bay is again divided in half. 17 and 18 and 21 don't change, so we're just swapping space. So this is the one that's recommended. This would be an alternative where you say, okay, let's keep the village of Sister Bay together, and you grab, again, now the northern part of the village as part of that option. So you have this district. Again, as far as what happens in Bailey's and the rest of the surrounding part, it's just, you're just swapping populations, what you're doing. It's exactly the same populations you're representing, you're just switching it around.
Vinnie?
I understand, and I don't know if the Village of Ephraim cares about this. I obviously didn't ask them, but it's the same argument I just made about not dividing the Village of Ephraim. And then it was said by a committee member that changing this would affect the timeline, would affect a lot of work that the staff has already done. So I'm just trying to understand why there's a like visual plan A and B for this scenario and not for another one, and why we should go with this. And just if I could hear back from staff or committee members what they think. And I don't, again, Village of Ephraim is what it is. Sister Bay is a bigger area, I understand, but I'm just trying to understand why one's considered and another isn't.
Again, in terms of the options, we have a whole series of options that I kind of went through. So again, we discussed options for all those three areas. So that's why you're seeing different options before you. And I guess from my standpoint, I'm just trying to be as transparent as possible in terms of what we're presenting, of all the discussions that took place. Well,
Dave, Anago?
Thank you. I have difficulty similar to Supervisor Shomo's statement of we're adjusting to put a single municipality underneath one district when every other compact municipality, City of Sturgeon Bay included, is broken up and including portions of non-city of Sturgeon Bay space. Similarly affecting others, my district change myself, I'm not overly enthusiastic because the person that's most likely to run against me is now in my district. In this configuration, we played this out. We tried to put the city of Sturgeon Bay, the village of Ephraim, into a single district. Economically, not numerically, compactness, it didn't work out. The city of Sturgeon Bay, broken into multiple pieces. Granted, it's considerably more dense, more people there, but the end result is it's still changing and those district directions are changing. People are going to have to experience not voting for their historical supervisor for the last 10 plus years. I would ask that if the current person, Zach, is able to speak to some of the numbering systems and some of the logic to how the districts in that neighborhood are created, to give his technical aspect of how all of these districts, if not specifically this neighborhood we're talking about on this amendment.
Sure, and that is a very valid question. So, from a non-biased standpoint to drawing these districts for the current county supervisors, we really took, in this particular case, in the town of Liberty Grove, it's very long and linear, and it's one of the bigger locations that we had to work with. So when we were drawing the town of Liberty Grove for supervisory districts, we took into an account of the compactness that we would be putting forward, as well as shoreline distribution. So there was a talk between the staff of prior years having other supervisors, other districts had more of a distribution of shoreline than others, and it's in this particular case there's no question that there's more of an abundant amount of shoreline that is presented here that would be covered under one supervisor. So in the case moving forward, we had that discussion along with the population put in place from the census blocks. We decided to create more compact districts that would break up that shoreline distribution among different supervisors.
Ken?
Yes. How does this change the population of the district? The population is the same. And it doesn't affect any two supervisors. Okay, it doesn't take one supervisor out and move them to another district or anything like that.
I believe under both options that you're seeing, 19,
Just the numbers change.
just the numbers change, correct?
21 would be Joel,
Yeah, 20 would be vacant.
20 would be vacant.
19 would be vacant.
No,
No,
that's David.
that's where I would be.
In the proposed one,
In the proposal.
In the proposal, correct.
and that one's vacant.
So who has 20 now?
I do.
Okay. And that's, the one on the right is the current map.
No,
The one on the right is the tentative one.
the one on the right is the proposed.
Okay, so the one on the left is the,
Amendment.
Amendment.
So under this tentative plan, under this option here, 21 is represented by Joel. This new proposed one, this 20 here would actually be a vacant seat. In other words, we have no incumbent supervisor living in this district.
okay, and 19 is,
19 would be our chairperson, Mr. Lino.
17 would be Mr. Boltman.
Yep. And 18 would be Vinnie.
So,
Under this option, under the amendment,
yeah,
you'd still have 19 would be, I guess, the way it's numbered. We could,
Would be another
I could do
open,
19, 20, but this one would be unrepresented, and then 20 would still be the county board chair.
so no matter
Either way,
how-
we have one unrepresented one.
I just wanna know that no matter how we do it, Northern Door is gonna pick up a supervisor because of the population.
No, you're not picking up a supervisor. Still the same number of supervisors.
Well, wait, there's nobody in 19 or 20 as they're shown right there.
If,
And no current supervisors affected by it. So, what I'm asking is who's the supervisor for either 20 or 19 right now as it sits?
I guess I'm currently, currently today, I'm in 20. Under the proposed, I'd be in 19.
Well, I'm missing something there. It looks like we've got a district that's not represented right now. And you got members of the committee that are saying, yes, I'm right, that they're gonna pick up a supervisor up north because of the population shift.
okay, we gotta watch the terminology. You're not, in my mind, the way the districts change, you have a vacant seat. I don't think you're actually shifting a supervisor, because we actually have 21
Right.
supervisors. So you're not picking up, so I think we
Right.
gotta make sure we're all talking the same terminology, so you don't get confused. So the way the district maps and the populations have shifted, by the way we created the districts, you have a vacant seat now created because of how the population falls in the northern part of the county. I would say that in general, you could say that with the size of the districts growing, you maybe shift part of the representation to the north, but in general, I'd say that's a
Okay.
gross statement, so.
Well, no, wait, now, let me, I looked at this, now well, currently, today, if it changes, like this, I'm representing, well, as of next April, I'd be representing District 6.
Correct,
I live in the city of Sturgeon Bay,
correct.
but I'm now representing a district in Southern Door County also. They're together, all right? So that would make it that Southern Door has 5 representatives. The city still has 7, but Northern Door would now have 9. So population-wise, we're the same, but, or am I missing something here now? I'm just looking at it. What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're-
and
you're
if,
shifting- You're shifting a half a district to
I
the
know.
north side of the canal.
but now
All you're
if Susie beat me, then she would be she'd live in the Southern Door, still representing part of the city, you can argue, but there are really only six city representatives. There'd still be the 6 in Southern Door, but now you've got, because you lose one in the city, now you're picking that up north, now you got 9. It used to be 876, didn't it? It was Northern Door had 8, Southern Door had 6, and the city had 7. It was a nice split is what I'm getting at. Now, I know population, am I correct? And it worked out nice, numbers wise, but population is shifting, I understand that. And that's the way it is, we'll all live with it, I just don't like it. It was always nice when Southern Door and we were all pretty, the 3 areas of the county were pretty equally represented.
You're-
I know, I'm saying, I understand population shift, it could get to the point where Northern Door has 18 representatives, the city has 2 and Southern Door 1. That can happen. I'm just saying, I personally don't care for that.
I guess if you're just,
I always liked the split for the county, that it was somewhat even.
if you're looking at it just from a count standpoint, the way the population shifted a little bit, it probably did go a little bit to the north, but it's, in my mind, it's very minuscule because it's actually like a half a district, because you had 9 if you did your map, you had 1 through 9, and 9 spilled over, now you have 1 through 8. So you're shifting a half a district to the north, and I'd still say a lot of that population is still, it's a half a district that's shifted, I guess is the best way of saying it.
In the terminology that there's a vacancy, that just means there's not a current incumbent at the election time.
Correct.
Yes,
Not today, but at the election time.
I get it.
Okay, we got it. Dan?
Well, I was gonna ask, you started out, are you and Bob under either proposal in the same district?
No.
Okay, that's what, the other thing is what the shifts is gonna be, is when you come to elect highway members from the committee, you're gonna have a disparity a little bit. North, south, and central, no.
It would still be the same,
No, it's still the same.
because it'd be no more than 2 in one.
Yeah,
district.
each one.
Right.
Okay. Biz?
Thank you. You stated that each district has 1,432. Is that voters or people?
People.
People, it's the
So
population.
that 1,432 even includes like the kids,
It's the census population that's been recorded.
the kids. So in other words, on page 29, which would be the District 14, would be the proposal for my district. If I added up all those numbers in all those blocks, it would come up to the actual voters, not that 1432.
The
Population.
1432.
Population.
Population,
Well,
not
that's the
voters.
population.
This is driven by the census population.
Is the primary residence where they live under the census.
Well, I don't know how the clerks can keep this track from fraud of people, filling out that census.
Okay,
That's gotta be just
so
crazy.
it has nothing to do with voting, that we have to
Right.
take that and remove it. So when we talked about why I was involved, it's really more of ballot styles. How many districts, wards do you split a
Community.
municipality into? It has nothing to do with number of voters, eligible voters, registered voters, nothing. So just remove the voting end of things completely.
So it just goes according to people, how many people are in
The
it,
census,
including the kids.
and they did 10 years ago as well. Nothing's ever changed.
Okay, Roy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just 2 comments. I appreciate what the committee did for making compact districts and making it more logical than before. My only question right now is, if we pass this amendment, do we have another hearing to go through? Because you're putting a timeline against us.
No. So that, we confirmed this both with Grant and Karen and also the state. So the tentative plan, we published the tentative plan as a hearing notice. And it's now before you. So now you can make amendments, but the goal will be is that you have to have a tentative plan leaving the room today is what the goal is, because that's the part that's under the timeline. So you can make amendments on the floor like you have here, and then we can take those amendments, and that's what's published out then out to the municipalities as the final approved tentative plan from the County Board of Supervisors. So you can make amendments as you're doing right now, legally.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question. When I look at the map that's on page 33 of the proposed District 18, it doesn't show Chambers Island, but I think I saw on the larger map, I mean, Chambers Island is part of that district, is that not correct? I just want to confirm that.
Correct.
Okay, and then, I mean, totally, maybe just an error in painting, but, and I realize nobody lives there, but Horseshoe Island probably should be yellow, not, or should be in District 18, not paint, at least on the map here, it's painted like it's in the other district. Anyway, probably irrelevant. This is a question of curiosity. I look at Peninsula State Park and I see people residing in Peninsula State Park and I just looked up too, Potawatomi has the same thing. How does that work? And then I have one more question after that, but can anybody answer that, or is that?
Again, that's, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead if you know the answer.
There are people living in Peninsula Park that are grandfathered in, if you will, from when it first became a park. And they have that property, I don't know for how many years or until there's a as long as a family exists, but it's something like that, that when you come out, you know where the golf course is, if you come out that straight road past the golf course, on the left side, there are a number of homes and or cottages before you get to the highway. And that is part of Peninsula State Park. Those people do live there. They are grandfathered in. They weren't kicked out when it became a park.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, just assuming that's probably, you know, maybe that's people in RVs that are able to claim a residency, whatever.
No, they have cottages there. They're homes there.
My question is more germane to the amendment that we're discussing, and that is, I wonder, two supervisors brought up that, you know, maybe these villages shouldn't be split. And I'm wondering, I don't know, and this is more of an open-ended question, maybe just a thought exercise. I mean, is there value in having that village be split? Because then that village essentially has two representatives on the county board. And so you're diversifying your village by splitting it, I guess. So, I don't know, just a thought, question. I don't know if anyone has anything to say about that.
I guess the only thing and that's one of the things that we discussed. I mean, you can look at it two ways. You could say that you could have with the proposed map, you could have two individuals residing in the village of Sister Bay, then now representing the town of Gibraltar, which the town of Gibraltar might see that as a negative. Or vice versa, you could have two town of Gibraltar representatives actually serving and representing the village of Sister Bay. So, I mean, is that good, bad, or different? But you could have that argument half a dozen different ways on that kind of stuff. And likewise, under the other option, you could have someone from the village of Ephraim that's representing Sister Bay and part of the town as well. So it's, again, when you get into the supervisor thing, that I think part of the idea that the committee looked at is that they're supposed to represent the county in that seat.
Susan?
Yeah, I guess all I would add is, and I don't really know how to say this, there isn't any question that all of us, we look at our districts, we look at the other districts, we have opinions as to which are better for us, which are worse for us, whatever they might be. And I just feel like once we start down this road, is it fair if we make a change for one section and not for other sections? I guess my conclusion after thinking about this for a long time was, I think we don't go down the road and we stick to the three main things, which is what we are presenting to you, the most compact, the most contiguous. I know the staff had discussions about splitting villages, keeping them together, whatever, and they came up with their best shot at this. And I feel like that's what our committee did too, as best we could. And so that's why I think we shouldn't be amending it at all, north, south, or central.
I just want to respond to that. So in other words, whatever recommendation comes forward for anything, you just pass it. You can't discuss it, you can't amend it, you can't take a second kick at the can for something that meets all the requirements of the recommendation, also meets all the requirements of the amendment. Okay. David Engelberg.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to say that I agree with Susan. The committee's taken a look at this and bringing forth what they think is their best recommendation, following what Bob questioned about two representatives. I don't see it necessarily as a negative. I think that you got two people representing you more closely. Many of the towns, Southern Door, Town of Union will never have they'll have a single representative, but someone there from District 1 is always representing also part of Brussels, part of Gardner. I've served in three different district creations by the census, and at one time I covered represented part of Gardner, different portions of Brussels, and now this time it'd be changed again if I'm reelected. I think we have to look that we're representing not just our district, but the whole county, and to fit, if a village is split, if a town is split, it's a problem for the voting, but it's not a representative issue in my mind at all. And I don't think it's even allowed anymore, but there was a time when Brussels and Union were together and had two common representatives. You voted for two people to represent the district. I don't believe that's allowed anymore, but that's the way it was organized at one time.
And just so you know, I'm not trying to disparage what the committee did.
I
and the
understand.
recommendation. I'm not saying that at all, okay? I'm just made an amendment based on what I think should happen with Sister Bay, that's all.
And I'm saying I don't think it's as much of a problem as you're suggesting.
Vinnie?
I just had a question about the comment made about calculating shoreline to determine the districts. I'm trying to understand, this is new to me. How does calculating shoreline, I understand the part about not adding wards to a municipality, where dividing a village does add wards to a municipality. And I'm looking at it from a constituent standpoint, like you live in the municipality, town, or village you live in, and it's already a little bit confusing to understand how you're represented in the county. So I'm not making a case for or against, but that's two parts. If we are not wanting to add wards, which was one comment, and then we're using shoreline to divide up districts, I'm at a loss. The large section of the shoreline in District 18, which just happens to be mine, is State Park. And just quickly addressing, that's 11 people living in Nicolay Bay campground. It's not the houses on the fringe. And I'm not arguing one way or the other, but I don't know the answers to any of those, so thank you.
The comment on the shoreline was just because that was one of the issues that came up back when we looked at the minutes from 2011. Was this, and then we didn't like go through and do mathematical thing of saying, well, you have 50 miles of shoreline, so you only get 5 more. It's just a matter of looking at the representation on some of the districts. If they were long and linear, just following the shoreline versus being compact was the discussion on it. That was the context of the shoreline.
Okay, thank you.
Megan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My main comment, I'm just going to mirror that we are the statement that we're representing the entire county. So from where I'm sitting, I feel that the less we have our hands in this as a county board, being the interested parties, remember, we may not be the folks sitting here in 8 months. Okay. So like I think it's really important to honor what came out of the staff's work and what came out of the committee. And take a few steps back and be as utterly objective as possible. Thank you.
David Engelbert?
Yes, I guess a comment that really doesn't affect the amendment in a way, but I think the committee did a good job and recognized that their problem probably comes from the Census Bureau and how those census districts were created, and that complicates this whole process of delineating supervisory districts.
David Enegal?
Thank you. To Supervisor Engelbert's current comment, I was absolutely baffled at how the blocks were laid out. I made literal comment during the meeting that looked like gerrymandering to me. It was just bizarre. And Bailey's Harbor is one of the most clearest ones where you jump over that little river and you have 2 sections there, essentially. The other thing is looking at working through all of this before I even was told to be on, that it might be on this committee. The district layouts we currently working underneath, seems somewhat gerrymandered if you take a look at how they are and how they represent. Currently down in the the Gardner, Nassauapi area, there's 2 representatives out of Gardner. So there's nobody representing Nassauapi as a living resident. Majority of us represent more than 1 municipality. Currently, I represent 4. Eventually, if I win this position, I will represent 1 less, which will make it easier during my comments at RPC, if I'm on that committee. I understand the views of the person that made the motion for this amendment. I have difficulty accepting it if we're not applying it across the board. I think personally the persons that drew up the maps that participated had all the various legal discussions, all of the various statutory discussions, all the various common sense discussions on how these municipalities are going to have to work with these, did the job right. I'm not necessarily happy with some of them either, but if you purely sit back and look at the numbers, the configuration, it makes sense. I have difficulty with this amendment simply because if it does go through, which I don't think it will look, act, and feel like gerrymandering. No intentions on you making the motion. It just, the reality is it's, for 10 years, we're gonna be listening to that. I recognize that it's probably a minor change if it does occur to the rest of the map, because to make up the numbers should be fairly simple. But I prefer the pure analytical numbers orientation that was used to develop this.
Okay. Of course, I'm the one who made the motion, right? I'm willing to withdraw my motion, withdraw the amendment, okay? The intent was not to quote gerrymander or anything else. I truly believe that in the case of Sister Bay, at this point in time, it's better to be in the B alternative than the A alternative, but I'm willing to withdraw my motion. Draw your second, Ken?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
I wanted it for explanation, any part of discussion anyway.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of in a fog on this whole business. I want to do a little bit of education here.
Okay, so the amendment's been withdrawn. Next. Todd?
I appreciate the discussion that took place, and certainly from my perspective, I understand, you know, why you put that forth in the sense of keeping Sister Bay together, and I don't believe there was any malintent by that, and as a new member to the board, I really struggled with how the hell I was gonna vote, so thank you for withdrawing that, because it's probably gonna be a flip of the coin.
Anybody else? Okay, so now we're back to the original motion. Stop wrong. How can we? There we go. Okay. Voter board?
You ready?
Yep.
You sure?
Yes. Okay, we're gonna go to the voter board. Wait, hold it. Mr. Fisher.
Yeah, I wanted to bring something up that I heard. Now, I just heard it. I didn't hear it personally, but I was told that considerations were made for some supervisors. They were called when the lines were drawn and made comments that, well, I won't run if I have to run against that person or something like that. And so lines were changed to accommodate that. Now, that bothered me. I don't know that it's, and I've checked it a couple different ways and been told, yes, that's true, maybe not word for word, but that is the way it went down. That bothers me. So I want somebody to tell me, look me in the eye and tell me that absolutely did not happen, because that's not right.
Well, I'll let Susie speak on one, but I can tell you that it did not happen. The only thing that did happen is that the committee asked that I call the incumbent supervisors that were now in a combined seat as a courtesy call to let them know to review the map. So I called you, I called Cara, Susie and Nancy were in the room, so they knew on that. But other than that, I mean, we did that meeting live, and there were no other changes to the maps after our meeting. So the other part, I don't.
So no changes, no considerations were made?
No.
Okay, well, but that's fine. And I did, you know, I don't want to get in the middle of things either, but I felt it had to be said in this way. Now it's public. Now it stops that rumor, okay?
I did ask Ken if he asked you if you'd be my campaign manager.
I know, and I accept it. But now in hearing how this is set up, it looks like you and I can both represent the same district. No, thank you for that. I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, now we're ready. Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Now, we're voting to accept the proposal
As presented.
as it was presented.
Correct. That's passed on a vote of 21 yea, 0 nay. Anybody want to take a quick break? Okay, how about a 10-minute break?
Joel's raising his hand.
Joel?
As a point of clarification, that was for the tentative plan. Does that mean that it's gonna come back again for a final, this whole thing? Or
Yes.
is that it? Okay.
Well, it's considered a tentative, but barring anything earth-shattering, you
Right.
can't really change it because what it does is it's considered tentative. It goes out to all the local communities. They have to build their wards. The boards come back. As long as the wards are valid, you adopt your final plan.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, next, pre-order of vehicles and. Hold on. Okay. Pre-order of vehicles and accessory equipment, Highway and Airport Department. I have Dave Engelbert down as the Chair of Finance.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-69, as you said, for the pre-order of the equipment. It's something that was in the budget for 2022. It was presented to the Highway Committee that there could be difficulty buying the equipment if we delayed ordering now, plus the cost of increase of the equipment. So it was the decision of that committee to recommend to Finance and County Board to purchase at this time and guarantee receipt probably, hopefully, within the first 6 months. There seems to be construction issues with every business. The $513,000 that could come from the highway account is the money that would, I believe, was in the budget for 2022. But the bid numbers that we have should bring the project or the purchase to the amount of that $478,774, barring any changes with that. I don't, Ken, if you want to add to that.
Nope, you did a great job.
You know, and that's why it's being recommended. It's the cost savings and the availability of the chassis within probably the first 6 months of 2022.
Questions? All right, we will go to the voter board, but it does require a 2/3 vote. That has passed with a 2/3 of 20 yea, 0 nay, and 1 absent. Resolution 2021-70, elimination of library maintenance technician and part-time custodian, create 1 FTE custodian in facilities and parks. Susan or Dan?
Well, I think Ken should explain that one.
Well, can you get a motion on the floor?
I'll make the motion then, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so the proposal that's before you is just to change our organization just a little bit in terms of our operations. In essence, there was a pending vacancy coming up within the library, and one of the areas that we've been looking at is both the maintenance and custodial work for that facility. Obviously, if you recall, Facilities and Parks oversees all of our buildings, except they did not really oversee the library. And it's just because how we were structured in the past. So when the opportunity came up, we met both with Tina and also with Wayne to discuss if we could optimize our operations. And what we're doing is we're actually going to create a custodial position under Facilities and Parks that would also then work with the library. But then also too, for the maintenance of the building, we'd actually bring that underneath our maintenance technicians. So the facility itself, this becomes another facility underneath Facilities and Parks. But by doing so, we actually do save some funding by going forward with this proposal. So I commend both Tina and Wayne for at least willing to discuss and meet with us on it. And they actually put together some of the work for it. And it did go both to Facilities and Parks, and I believe it was Library Board last night in terms of review and approval. So that's the status. Megan?
Go ahead. Megan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will also add to that from Library Board last night. that both of those positions have been difficult to fill on the library side. So this combination also gives us a little bit more leverage from an HR perspective too.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll go to the voter board. Alexis?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
That's passed with a vote of 20 yea, 1 absent. Thank you. Resolution 2021-71, increase of hours, new positions, reclassification requests, and part-time pay rates for 2021 and 2022. I'll send it to Susan or Dan again.
Mr. Chair, I move that we pass resolution number 2021-71, increase of hours, new positions, reclassification requests, and part-time pay rates for 21 and 22.
Okay, thank you. Alexis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make the comment that we've seen this at finance and admin, but the spreadsheet, I think there was 2 comments for updates and the spreadsheet didn't change. What I'm looking at is the on-duty advanced EMT 3rd year. That line, there's no listed increase, but when we talked about this and asked Aaron, that was supposed to be a shift. And I can't remember the other one, but there was one other thing, I believe, on the spreadsheet itself that just needed to be corrected or clarified.
Alexis, could you point that out again, which one you're talking about?
Page 76, Amendment A.
Yep.
On-duty advanced EMT 3rd year, it's listed as 1650, proposed rate 1650, 0 increase. And that was supposed to get a 50% bump, or sorry, 50-cent bump. That's a very different thing, a 50-cent bump. Just like the other positions.
Correct.
Anybody else? If not, we'll go to the voter board.
So just to be clear, we're gonna handle that as this a Scribner's error, because that was discussed. Oops. We're gonna just do that as a Scribner's error, because that was discussed in terms of correction, and that's not on the sheet, but, so you're voting with it being that $17 an hour.
It's David. It's catching, right? That is. Okay, that passes the vote of 20 yea, 1 absent. Resolution 2021-72, elimination of Badger Care eligibility cliff. Megan?
Adopt resolution 2021-72, requesting elimination of Badger Care eligibility cliff. This is, I think, just a really fabulous beginning to looking at some benefit reform work at the state level. It does have the support of our state rep, Joel Kitchens, and also Joe Krebsbach, and he is here to answer any questions anyone might have on it.
Does anybody have any questions? Susan?
Yeah, this is just a technical thing. I'm wondering why this says the board action requires 2/3.
It's a typo.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? By voice vote.
Wait,
What?
one question.
I'm sorry, Roy?
Yes, I'd like the further explanation of this resolution.
Is this picking me up?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. So currently, and it applies primarily to individuals without children, so adults without children. The way the Badger Care system works at this point is individuals are allowed to work, but if they earn anything over $1,073 per month, they lose their eligibility for Badger Care. So basically, there's a disincentive to work more, even if they're able. So that income level would be about $13.41 per hour for 20 hours a week of work. If an individual made more than that, say $15, if they worked 72 hours in a month, they would lose their Badger Care eligibility. So an individual who is currently on Badger Care and may have a medical condition that requires them to take a medication that's fairly expensive can get that medication through the Badger Care system. But if they go over that $1,073 mark, they would automatically lose that eligibility. And so what we're asking at this point is that the legislatures look at creating a graduated system where as individuals' income goes up, that they have the ability to pay towards their premiums as opposed to losing the benefit altogether.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody else? Okay. By voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Resolution 2021-73, a mandatory resolution to number 2020-117. Citizen Participation Committee for the Community Block Grant CDBG program. Susan, would you make the motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we, okay. I move that we pass the amendatory resolution number 2020-117, Citizen Participation Committee for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And Ken, I guess you're gonna explain why we're doing this, or?
Yep.
Sure. Just a quick explanation. If you were looking at committee appointments, these next two. So this is the committee appointment. It has to be done as a separate resolution, and this is for our Community Development Block Grant, which relates to our project on the west side in the city of Sturgeon Bay for the old West Side School. Again, that committee will meet, I think, 2 more times during the duration of the project, and it's required as far as the federal dollars that we receive as part of the grant.
Any other questions? All right, by voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. 2021-74, appointments to committees, commissions, and boards. Susan?
Move that we adopt resolution 2021-74, appointments to committees, commissions, and boards. And you, on your resolution that you got, they're on the back. Ken, you wanna speak about those, or?
Can we have a second? Thank you, Joel.
So again, these were, the vacant, these were the vacant seats from the previous supervisor for District 9, obviously. And now these would be the recommendations in terms of filling those seats for the remaining of the term. And you can see all those terms expire in April of 2022.
Right. I should also point out that the ones that Supervisor Beardsley was appointed to via this, he really only has one that meets on a regular basis. The rest of them may not even meet between now and the election date. So just an FYI. And then Elizabeth, we put her on finance. And Todd is already on the economic development. So we kept him in that position again through April to fill in this other piece. Any questions? If not, I'm sorry. Vinnie?
I just have one, just to clarify, were you saying Todd is already on it as a county board representative, or he's already on it outside of county board work?
Both.
Okay. Thank you.
By doing this, he'll fill the second part of it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
He will fill the county board supervisor position.
Kara?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say quickly with disappointment that I was voted in by constituents and I don't have a committee assignment that meets monthly. Thank you.
Okay. Vinnie?
Sorry, I have one more, which is kind of a follow-up to that. I guess it's no offense to Supervisor Thays, but just wondering if there should be somebody on that committee who is not already on it outside of their county work, just to diversify the committee. I just didn't know if that was considered. Thank you.
I mean, just for this one, because we're looking at just the reassignment of the seats in April. And again, Todd is already on in terms of a representative as far as a manufacturer. So we were just trying to, in essence, just get us through the April timeframe. So that was,
Okay.
I mean, that was the primary logic for that, just in terms of their board, so they don't have to restructure, so.
Yeah, I understand it. Just, it's 8 months away and I feel like I don't know the composition of the rest of that board, but I guess if we're suggesting someone be on it who's already on it, it'd be nice to know, like, if the board is diversely representing different interests. Thank you.
Explain how that was split up with Laura and Steve discussion.
Oh, for the,
For Todd.
yeah.
Remember we had the discussion about.
Oh, yeah, okay. So for the DC EDC, the board representation is for their board members. They actually have the listings for, I guess, what they do for, what they try to target for members. So in this case, I guess the diversity of the board would still be there with Todd serving, I guess, having the dual seats. So, but again, we can change that in the future I mean, that's part of the discussion for that. The only thing that we did do is there was the one part where we had it listed before for the economic development was the EDA loan fund accounts for both EDA and also what they call the Sturgeon Bay Door County Economic Development Corporation Loan Fund. Those are still going to be filled out by Laura in her seat because she went through training for that. So those, they asked that she stay on board for that. So that one, she was going to serve on that when they meet for the loan committees, but that's not a formal committee structure. That's the working group for the loans. But again, as far as the representation on the board itself, we put down Todd for that.
Megan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are those requirements or what they're looking for, is that easy to provide to us at this time?
For the DC EDC seats, I don't think,
Yeah.
they're not on their website.
Okay.
But I mean, I can get those from Steve for the next meeting.
Well, I feel like I've read them before, and that this board, and again, absolutely nothing against Supervisor Thays whatsoever, but I feel like this board could serve to diversify that committee even further with possibly a separate selection rather than doubling up. Just because, I mean, Bay Ship is already such a large part of the employment and business community of Door County and Sturgeon Bay, that there would be a benefit to having some other folks representing other areas of the community that are served by DCDC. I feel like that may look and feel better to a lot of our constituents.
Okay. Anybody else? Megan, did you want to say something again? Oh, you did, okay. We're just. Give me one moment. Okay, any other comments at the moment? None. What I will do is, since we've had some questions about that particular appointment, I'll be happy to pull that appointment for this meeting, and we'll have a further discussion about it. We'll have further discussion with Todd and with the Economic Development Committee, and come back next month. Okay, so this would be to pass the other assignments, the other recommendations, other than Economic Development Committee at this point in time. So all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Ordinance, none. Special reports, none. New business, any oral committee reports? Review of committee minutes. Review of vouchers, claims, and bills. Announcements. The DCECD Annual Investors Meeting and Luncheon on September 22nd at 12 noon, Stone Harbor Resort Conference Center. Next was the WCA Annual Conference, September 26th to the 28th in La Crosse. A couple of things to mention there. There's always a question as to what the expense reimbursement is for that. If you recall, last year we went through this, so we'll go through it again. So on Sunday is a travel day, you would get $25 an hour for your travel for the time it takes to get there, plus your mileage. On Monday, you'd get $225 for an all day at the conference. And on Tuesday, the day that you would leave, you also get $225 because you'll be there for several hours in the morning, plus your trip home. That'll be the $225 plus mileage. You cannot take reimbursement for meals that are authorized or provided for by the conference. So if there's breakfast available in the morning, you choose to go someplace else and have it and pay for it, you don't get reimbursed for that. Okay? If it's provided at the conference, there's no reimbursement for it. Did I miss anything? Any questions on the expense reimbursement? David?
Had changed as far as there being a virtual option. Thank you. I don't know as far as safety precautions with masking or distancing, if any of that's is happening. Last I heard it was not, so thank you.
I am not aware of any of that option. David?
Yeah, just a point of clarification, not on these, but actually on the workshop that we had. What is the reimbursement? I hear different things. Were we paid by the hour? Were we paid by the day? And then Finance Committee had a meeting after that.
Workshop day.
Up at
that was a county board meeting.
County board meeting of 150.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then those on the Finance Committee, there's no payment for that for the same day?
Correct. Correct.
Correct, okay. And the committee members know. Okay, thank you.
Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, a clarification about today. We had a hearing to start the day. Do we put down anything for that, or we just put down one thing today for $150?
It'll be the one thing for the $150.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, if you haven't picked it up already, shirts are available in the back. Our next regular county board meeting is October 26th at 9 a.m. The meeting per diem code is 221. And a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Chairman, if there's no further business to be transacted, I'd like to make a motion we adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.